We are live.
Hey, hey, hey.
Wait, we're live?
Oh, yes. Yes, we are. Yes, we're live. That's
well,
what the button says, at least.
The button says we're live. So I'm going to assume that we're actually live.
We are, in fact, live. I've got the other window open. How's it going out there, folks?
Oh, wait. I was waiting for somebody to say something. I'm like, oh, right. It's just me and you, Jim.
It's just the two of us.
Just the two of us.
There's nothing else that's going on. I'm doing good, I think. It's been kind of a busy weekend between playing in Taken 20's Cody's game yesterday, and then we had a special guest interviewed that we interviewed yesterday afternoon, which you guys will be able to hear for, I think, next Friday's podcast. I thought it was a pretty good one. It's a good interview.
No, that was some in-depth shit, man.
Right. Yes. So those of you who are curious about RPG publishing, the kind of work that goes on into publishing, and just like what it's like to have been a publisher in between like 3rd edition, 4th edition, and 5th edition, as well as someone who is like really into old school games, are going to appreciate this this interview we've got for you for next week. So yeah, we're going to do a chat. Pruitt and I have a game that's going to be live at 6:30 Eastern on Twitch, the Power Score RPG. That's Pruitt and I are returning to play in the Tomb of Annihilation game from Sean McGovern. So we're going to have to keep this hangout a little short, shorter than usual. But we want to get to y'all's questions and just hang out with you guys. So fill up the chat with whatever you got for us. Otherwise, we're just going to run our mouths.
Yeah, I mean, any thoughts, questions, quandaries, cosmic observances? We're just going to keep this really informal. I mean, I'm sorry, I just got done playing a 40K game, so I'm still up in space, man. Yeah.
Yes, pro for everyone. I just saw your comment. Yeah, I do. I like the notebook way better than a character sheet. Most of my characters are now either on D&D Beyond or Fantasy Grounds, but when I play like an actual character, I usually just have a piece of paper. It's so much easier than the character sheet. So
yeah, I still love I don't know, man. I still love having like the character sheet. I love filling it out. I'm a creature of habit and ritual, so I don't know.
You like that? So you like that? You like having the organization for it. Now, I'll be honest. There's something great about a character sheet of a character that's in their teens, right? Like, you know what I mean? Like, there's something like you've had the same sheet since level 1. It's got the little notes all over it, places where you've erased it. Maybe there's even like a little hole in the thing. So,
yeah, I was looking for Corrid.
Yeah, Corrid is one of those. I saw Corrid's sheet the other day when I was in Austin, and I was like, hot damn, that is a well-loved character sheet.
Just keep them going for like 10 seconds.
All right. Let's see what we got. Blizzard 13. I have the only Gestalt game that I have played in was in 3rd edition. I think it was I can't. Geez, it's been so long that I can't remember if I was the DM or the player. But it was in a time when our gaming group consisted of me and Pruitt and another person. Here's Corrid.
Yeah, I mean, I'll take some pictures and post them in the Discord. But yeah, I got a lot of shit written on there.
Yeah, see, if that was mine, half of it would be written in with pen. Probably some different colored markers or highlighters or something would be on there. I just found it was easier. And then if all you have is a piece of paper for your character sheet, whenever you need a new one, you just turn the page and start a new one.
Yeah,
but it doesn't have the romance of a character sheet well played across a long campaign.
Yeah. Now, if you'll recall, I went through quite a phase of putting my sheets in those clear,
the clear binders.
Clear binders and using markers for the things, but then I don't know, man. It's like it's literally like there's something in between me and the sheet, so I literally did not feel as connected to them. And at the end of I'm looking at this pristine sheet that I've only added to, and I've never had to erase anything off of, and it's like I didn't even play you. It's like you weren't even there.
It's like you weren't even there.
I don't know. I just I mean, that was for quite a while. It was all through like Tiamat and Out of the Abyss. Those
a lot of good gaming there. But yeah,
I think it really was Rilvian, I think, where I kind of stopped doing that.
Oh yeah.
And so yeah, I'm pretty sure I found his character sheet. And there's quite a few erase marks on there. And I remember that's when I was big into the binders on the sheets.
So yeah, damn it. I don't know. I like custom sheets, right?
Yeah,
like
if they're done right. Yeah,
sometimes a custom sheet's really good, but I just like having everything on one piece of paper. I don't like having to switch around. It makes spellcasters kind of interesting, but that's also why I like using the spell cards that Josh always bring. Let's see what we got here. So we were Blizzard 13 was asking about Gestalt game. Pruitt, have you ever played in a proper Gestalt game?
I'm remembering in 3rd edition we did a one-shot, a Gestalt one-shot.
Okay.
I just did I think I did a fighter wizard, and it was fucking awesome because it was a 3rd edition Gestalt fighter wizard. But like it was that, I think that's literally, I have always wanted to play in a Gestalt game because I think the idea of that is just, I mean, you want to go high fantasy? Yeah, let's do Gestalt.
Do Gestalt.
And like you'll only get like a couple of magic items in your entire life, but they'll be awesome.
Right.
And I mean, your character's gonna take care of the rest, right?
They'll take care of the rest, right? I don't know. I can't remember if I DM'd or played in that game, quite honestly.
I don't remember. I just remember it was a one shot.
Yeah, I haven't tried it in 5th. Personally, I feel like there was a time in my life when Gestalt gaming really appealed to me. And like the thought of it now, I think about it, I'm just like, man, that's like a lot of work to like how you mesh the classes together. There's a lot of like rulings that would need to take place because you're combining abilities that are never really sort of meant to be combined, or at the very least, like, do you allow extra attack to stack twice, or is every instance of getting extra attack gonna create a character?
I would not allow duplicate abilities to stack. If you get it once, then no, that's just me though.
What up, Crump?
Crump.
What up, Crumpler?
Pruitt is a ritual caster. Yes, I do. Yes, I am a ritual caster. Thanks for outing me there, Michael Johnson. That's fine. And then Michael Johnson back again. Do you think the psionic class will make it into official 5e documents, or is it too weird, divisive? Psionics has been in there for a while, like 2nd edition.
Yeah, well, even further back, I think. I can't be real specific. I think that yes, that if you follow the Merles and company's Twitter accounts, you'll know that they're always talking about the things that they want to bring into the game, or that they're kind of started working on. And he's been working on conversion for Dark Sun for a while, at least for a couple of months, it seems. If not for his home game, then perhaps for Wizards. And if it's Dark Sun, if it's official Dark Sun and not just like post-apocalyptic fantasy, then psionics are kind of a part of that. So I don't know whether it's too weird or divisive. There's always going to be people who don't want peanut butter in their chocolate.
It's so delicious though.
It is very delicious. Let's just be honest.
Yeah.
But I do think that there are people like that want traditional Euro fantasy. They want basically Game of Thrones, but with sort of the trappings of Dungeons and Dragons, and they don't really want like weird experimental stuff. So I think that if they do, it'll probably be siloed in its own sort of product, and not sort of assumed to be like, here's an addition to the rules. So I don't think they're in Xanathars, right? Like I think they were kept out of Xanathars because it's like psionics belong to this particular type of space fantasy, science fantasy, weird gonzo fantasy style D&D that'll probably have its own product tied in with Dark Sun.
So it's that you think that they're going to do a Dark Sun setting book and psionics will be exclusively part of that, but I mean others could draw from it.
That's kind of how I feel. Yeah, that's sort of what I'm thinking.
I can totally see that. Why not? I mean, it's a way to introduce its own thing and its own flavor.
Right. So that's kind of what I'm thinking. Who knows though? It might be that they surprise us all and do something completely different. That certainly wouldn't be the first time that they have. So that's just kind of my bet for that. It's kind of a long-winded answer.
Yeah.
Tighten it up, Jim. Tighten it up.
No, it's fine. That's fine.
All right.
We're good.
It's cool. 10% on the field today.
Yeah.
All right.
So
all right, I've stopped speaking spells for my druid. I can finally pay attention.
We don't say that out loud, Jim.
Okay. Sorry. So sorry.
Let's see. Pro for Everyone has a question here. How often have you made magic items specifically for a character in one of your games, or do you stick with what's in the DMG? Well, I know the answer to this, or at least the broad answer. So, Jim.
Probably every campaign, I'll make a custom item or two. The last one that I can recall doing was the Demonomicon. There was one of the players found it. I was handing out artifacts. Someone got the Axe of the Lord. Someone got Black Razor, and the caster in the party wanted the Demonomicon. And I was like, sure. So we had to come up with rules for that, a custom item for that. And that's kind of the last one I can remember. Of course, that was kind of the last big campaign that I ran. It's been a while since I've run like a big campaign instead of like one shots and little mini campaigns and things like that.
Well, yeah, like Maze of the Blue Medusa went on for a while, but
yeah,
I think you kept it pretty to the book on that one, right?
Yeah, I don't even remember giving out a lot of magic items in that one.
No, I mean, it was all like really basic shit. It wasn't
really basic shit. Yeah.
So
I do it. I usually try to, every campaign there's some kind of custom item. Sometimes the players create them. They want something. We'll just come up with something on the fly for how to create it themselves.
Yeah. So Crump wants to know if we recovered from the PAX pox. I am like 90%. I still have a little bit of a sinus thing, but that for the most part I'm done. So thanks for asking. How about yourself, sir? Give us a shout back in the chat.
Yeah.
Thanks for inquiring.
I was run down for most of that week, not just from PAX, but we also fucking shot our shows right after PAX.
Oh, Jesus. It was so stupid.
A very stupid idea. We will not be doing that for future cons. We're going to shoot first and then party at the con later. So it took about it took a few days for me to recover, but someone cast a spell for me. And I got to be honest, I've been feeling great ever since.
You know what? I'm gonna do something in the Discord. I'm gonna start a channel named Character Sheets. It's where you can post your character sheets that you either like or characters you've used. Because I don't know. What do you think, Jim?
That's fine. The Discord, as you well know, is a riot, an unorganized, chaotic mess of channel organization. I'm in other people's Discords, and they've got like categories and subcategories, and they're all grouped together nicely. And I think maybe at one time I had designs on cleaning this place up, but I kind of like that it's just a big ass list of whatever the most recent idea that Rainforest had to come up for a channel. That's what it is in the Discord. So it is what it is. Character sheets. There you
everybody can look at my my horrible handwriting. But I write that shit out. I want to have to go looking in a book.
He writes it out. Absolutely. So yeah, I just use D&D Beyond now.
Well, nice. You got that kind of access.
I got that kind of access.
So Austin F, he wants to know, how do you feel about clerics taking warlock patrons or vice versa? What kind of good or bad interactions would you implement for a player who got mixed up in multiple masters?
Yeah.
That's a good one.
Yeah, that's a good one. So I take the difference between warlocks and clerics as one of being a cleric offers faith and devotion to an entity in exchange for being able to tap into some of that power. Whereas a warlock is just like, hey boss, I'll sign this contract with you, but I'm a free agent. So the cleric acts out of love, out of faith, out of perhaps a connection that they can't quite explain. Whereas the warlocks, unless you're dealing with a pact they inadvertently agreed to, is much more contractual and utilitarian. So first off, we're dealing with a cleric who have they lost faith? Is there some reason that they've decided to make a pact with another being and not sought that aid with their deity and the deity's servants, that's a possible way to kind of to kind of play that. Maybe they've fallen and they're just like they need their magic. Yes, Pruitt, what's going on? I see those fires burning. What do you got?
What if you got a cleric of a god and then he becomes a warlock? His patron is like a solar that works for that god, but in a more specific manner. And maybe it's something that the cleric doesn't really like doing. But that solar, he's tasked with taking care of some very like dirty business, and he needs a mortal to do that. And so, you know, the main god can't concern itself with these specific things. And so it's like the black bag guys for this god.
Yeah. The night cast is how I always kind of
yes. Now I want to do this. Like that sounds.
I can see that. That's an interesting idea because it's like you have your cleric who's faithful to this deity, but they've taken the celestial pact because that celestial is like, well, I'm actually in charge of some pretty nasty things, and so you're going to learn a bit of arcane magic as part of the agreement. I think like. I don't know. You should probably see what the player's most interested in that having two masters, and see if it's all right to like pit them against each other. What if like in the case of a god and then a solar, the solar is gone off as rocker, and initially seems like everything's copacetic, but the deeper and deeper you get into like doing things for the patron and like having the patron show up and intrude and be a point in the life that you'd be like, what is going on with this solar? Like, are they? And then maybe you flip it around and the deity is like, the solar has gone rogue, and maybe it's not even. Maybe it's something else. It's like it's not that they've gone evil; it's they've gone chaotic. You know,
right? Yeah. So they're supposed to be lawful good, and now they're chaotic good. And it's like they're this solar. They get the authority syndrome, where it's like, well, I know these people are
fix
evil.
all these problems
if I just kill these people outright. Then they will never harm anyone.
I don't need to wait for the deity to tell me what to do. I'm going to proactively start solving problems.
They go Minority Report on that shit.
So that's kind of how I would do it for that specific case. But there's plenty of others, right? Like there's fantasy literature abounds with tales of pious seeming clerics who are actually double dealing with devils on the side. Any number of things, those that, and it doesn't even have to be like diametrically opposed like that. You could be a trickster cleric who packs with an archfey because the archfey is just like, hey, I like your style. You're cut from the same cloth kind of thing. So, you can have the masters have different goals that will conflict and making the player choose between one or the other. There's a lot of different ways you can play it, but I'd make the player like, don't just let them do it because it's a power gaming mechanical kind of thing. Just make them give you some reasons for why this might happen, and then things you can use for their character.
Yeah, I do love the idea of the cleric that gets corrupted by some dark patron.
Yeah,
some devil or demon. They have to sign part of their soul away for whatever.
Yeah,
and what happens when their god finds out? Oh, that's good stuff. Let's see. 13. Okay, so looks like Blizzard 13 rules that warlocks have to use int. What do you think about that, Jim?
I like first off, I think having one more intelligence caster is fine. I personally, I think that int warlocks are fine. You could even just be like, yeah, let the cleric or let the player choose at character creation. There's a part of me that wishes bards were intelligence charisma classes, like intelligence primarily and then charisma secondarily through their skills and other things. Like I like the idea of a bard as in the kind of that classic sense, not as a wandering minstrel or entertainer, but as someone who travels and collects stories. And therefore they are as much a scholar and a repository of knowledge as they are an entertainer.
Yeah, no, there's many different ways to be a bard, and that's one of the ways that I always love playing is where you're just like an orator. You go around and you tell those stories.
Yeah, because I think it was second edition where bards actually had to have a spell book, and they had to find and prepare, transcribe scrolls into their spell book, but they were just always behind wizards. They just had a little smattering, a smackerel of magic. You can hear Monk purring. He's quite.
Oh, yes, he's a loud one. Yeah, but by the way, this is Monk. This is not Isis. I am still harboring Isis, though. She's actually curled up underneath my top blanket, like she loves to be covered up. She just stuck a paw out from underneath it. Monk was bellowing earlier, so I picked him up to make him happy.
Yeah.
So yes, I hope everyone can hear him purring.
Cool. I see Kirk King II advice about engaging my rogue player with the Fae was spot on. Ran a heist mission for the Fae Lord. My rogue player loved it. Thank you, Jim. You're welcome. That's kind of one of the things I love so much about the position that we're in at WebDM is all the people who just sort of want to chat about their games with me. It keeps my DMing muscles flexed and exercised, because I'm getting kind of like constantly people asking like, oh, what about this kind of thing? Or I want to do this. Will you check out my subclass, or will you do whatever? And so I'm having to constantly engage in the analytical part of the Dungeons and Dragons that I like. So I appreciate it. I hope it went well. And there you go. Awesome.
So Jim, when's your next in-person game coming up?
I don't know. I keep trying to get. We weren't able to meet for January, and like the last time that we played, we played for less than 2 hours, because it was like a Friday night. They were supposed to come over around 5ish, hang out, and we put Trogdor to bed. It only takes like 45 minutes or so to give him a bath and put him in bed and do the whole thing, and we would just take a break while that was going on. But they didn't get there till like 7:30ish, because they had a something they couldn't get out of or something. So we didn't get started till like way early. It was a Friday night, and everybody was super tired. And like by 8:30, everybody was like, this is not quite, the energy was like at a super low. It's, how it is.
That just happens sometimes.
And so they left, and apparently one of the players was really mad at the other for just like, why did you have to tell? We didn't have to leave this early. Like, we could have kept going, and if only you hadn't been so tired. And I was like, hold up now.
Well, you've said this very sentence before, but the only thing worse than, what is it? No D&D is bad D&D.
Yeah, it really is. And so like they woke up, they met an NPC who had wandered into their camp, and then they descended back into the haunted crypt, and they found the vampire's lair. They like found the 2 chained victims. One of them was dead, the other was dying. They found a scattered notes and an overturned table, like someone had left in a hurry. And they were kind of questioning the person that was still alive whenever they left, but they were also seemed terrified that a vampire was about to bust up in there and rip them all to shreds. Because at one point they were like, let's go fight that vampire. Let's go do it. They're only 3rd level.
Yeah.
and so one of the players turns to me and was like, how is that? Can we do that? Can we? And I was like, I say you can try, but make some history rolls, make some religion rolls. And because the backgrounds of several of the players are tied in with vampires. The gnomish artificer, she was attacked by vampires in her backstory. It's kind of what kicked off her adventuring career. The other character is a cleric, and so has some sort of academic knowledge of undead in that way. And they like rolled well on their lore, and I was just like, here's what you know about vampires. They could kill you without you really being aware of it. Like they're fast, they have magic, they can shape change. If it wanted to, you'd be dead already. And so you have to be very careful. I was like, but they also have significant vulnerabilities. And I was like, they're vampires, right? Sunlight, stake through the heart, that kind of thing. So that sufficiently scared one of the players. She was telling me later on, she was like, I don't want to have anything to do with these vampires if it means my character could die. And I was like, well, It could. You have to be smart about it. But eventually you reach a point where vampires, you could eat them for lunch.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, you will eventually get to a point where you're like, vampire, fuck that guy. And just lay the smackdown on him. So it's like, it's you have to weigh your risks.
Yeah, well, this is what you do. You get a bunch of mirrors and stakes to put in the ground. And you only go during the day, and you reflect the sunlight to go down the chamber. And at every intersection, you set up another mirror so you have some sunlight that follows you the whole time. It'll be totally worth it, trust me.
It'll be totally worth it. There's not going to be minions or servants protecting the vampires while they sleep. Nothing like that. So we'll see. I was going to I was going to scare them with a summoned monster. Have like a big ass baddie show up and kill the living captive to keep them from giving some information. But I think instead of sending like a big ass baddie, I'm going to send some smaller ones that they can either choose to run from or fight or something like that, just in case they're itching for a fight, and I send like a pit fiend there to kill someone.
Yeah, you don't want to have a TPK this early. That might break the spirit of a new player.
That might discourage them. So I don't know. We'll see. It's been fun. It's fun so far. Playing with new players is great.
Oh, it always is. That seeing that fear for the first time is it just rejuvenates you.
Yeah, she was like, "You mean my character could die and I'd have to make a new one?" And I was like, "Yep."
Yeah.
And she was like, and she was just like immediately over it. She was like, "How I can't do? Why would I want to do that? Like, why wouldn't my character just stay at home?" And I was like, "Well, the game's about fantasy action, and you have to accept the fact." And I was like, and past like 5th level, you don't really need to worry about it that much in 5th edition. You don't. There's a cleric in the Emma rolled a cleric. You guys are gonna be perfectly fine. There's a reason she played a cleric.
Oh yeah, totally.
So there you go.
Looks like we got some questions here in the chat pro for everyone. Looking for advice for a friend who's running his first campaign for brand new players. There are 8 of them. Tips for keeping things flowing. I believe we've talked about this before.
Yeah. So this is one of those things where there was a rule from first edition that people got really upset about called the caller. Where they were the only person allowed to talk to the DM, and it was their job to take everybody's ideas and relay them to the dungeon master. That might not be a bad idea for a party of 8 newbies, because otherwise the DM is going to get overwhelmed with 8 people asking them questions without any real semblance of order. So it's up to the DM early on to be like, hey, in order to keep things moving at a nice pace and to make sure that that everybody's good, we are going to answer questions in a certain order. So if you've got a question for me, periodically be like, do you have a question? Do you have a question? And you just work your way clockwise from your left, whatever, or from your right, counterclockwise. You can do something like that in combat. Let them know that, do like what Pruitt has suggested before, where whoever's turn it is their turn, and let the next person and then the next person in line know that they're about to be up.
Yeah, in baseball it was called on the deck and in the hole. Right. Somebody's up to bat, you're on the deck, you're in the hole.
So you can use the terminology, whatever works for you, but it gives people an initiative tense is another good one for the top of your DM screen if you're using one. But other than that, try to keep their options limited early on and expand them as they get more comfortable with the game. Be prepared to get through like maybe one encounter. You don't have to have a big adventure prepared for them that early on. They're going to some of them are going to want to talk to NPCs. Some of them aren't going to want to. Some of them are going to want to have a ton of questions about character creation. Just be prepared for things to take a little slower, but always put that gentle pressure on them to be like, okay, we got to keep the game moving, and just do like that.
Also, group initiative might help. That way, it's a little easier on new players, so at least they can like coordinate their attacks a little bit better than being stuck in a rigid initiative order.
Yeah, so you can tell them like, you can have each side roll a d6, for instance. And then if they need to, they can add their initiative modifier to that roll to determine what order things happen in if that becomes important. But otherwise, it's just like high roll. DM rolls d6, players as a group roll a d6. Whoever goes high goes first. And then it's just like that. You can do that once, or you can do that every round. But usually you just do it once, and that sets the I go, you go sort of nature of it. Consider having monsters with legendary actions, even at lower level. The Goblin War Boss is a good boss for like a first level party to have to take on, particularly a big one if you've got some minions with him. It's got some interesting abilities. I think it's got some legendary actions. It can like grab a goblin and use it as a shield or something like that.
Wait, it would.
It would. But like the Goblin War Boss is one of those where it's fairly early on that you stop caring about goblins or worrying about them, so they don't get used as much. But it can be a fun, if you're looking for like a big fight, maybe staging one around the Goblin Boss would be good.
Yeah. Well, unless you're using goblins to their full effectiveness. Yeah.
Right.
So yeah, there's that.
All right,
so PPAT 9192. Here's a question. My player recently recovered a scale of Bahamut. What are some of the ideas should happen because of it? Well, I would say Bahamut would probably want their scale back, so maybe they're being chased now by.
Sure, I mean, it could be. Maybe it's considered a holy relic by paladins of Bahamut.
Yeah,
Bahamut. I always get Baphomet. It's not Baphomet. Baphomet is
Bahamut.
Bahamut.
But yeah, it could be armor. Could be a shield.
It could be used as armor. Could be used as an arcane, as part of an arcane focus. You could embed it in the hilt of a sword and have that sword gain some measure of, say, protection against fear or bonus to fight chromatic dragons or something like that.
Or some bonus on saves versus dragon breath, or
bonus on save versus dragon's breath is another. Maybe you could collect them and make like a necklace of them, and then it's sort of like a necklace of fireballs that lets you use different breath weapons from all the dragons that Bahamut represents. The platinum dragon, we keep calling him. That's why I do that.
Yeah.
Anyway, like those are some interesting things so you can do that. But I kind of like the idea of something like that as being like a super arcane focus or a super spell component, where it's like it doesn't get consumed. You have this, and then you can use it and permanently augments your spells or something like that.
Oh yeah. Let's see. Matt K has a copy of Thrawn. If we want to read it.
Yes, did. You should download the Audible app and you can check that out.
All right, I have to do that. And Crump, apparently, let's see, has a player that always seems to have characters that are easily pissed off and quick to insults and fights. And how to discourage this for their future characters. Well, that certainly sounds like someone who has some issues to work out as a catharsis through D&D. This is not, I'm just armchair psychologizing here. But, might want to talk to him and be like, hey, you have to make a charisma-based pacifist for your next character. You're not playing in my game anymore.
I think it's certainly possible to just be like, hey, we've noticed a pattern to your role-playing characters and appreciate some variety. I don't think it's out of line to tell a player something like that there needs to be more variety in how they portray the game and how they portray their characters, particularly if the way they portray those characters is disruptive to some degree. And someone who's constantly interpreting everything you do or the players do as an insult or an excuse to fight is sort of one of those where you need to take them aside and just be like, hey, man, I get where you're going with this. Finish playing out this character, but next time, will you consider playing someone who isn't so quick to fight? And I don't know if he or she is the kind of person that is open to being talked to that way. But you might just ask, like, what is it that appeals to you about playing a character that's so quick to get in a fight and so quick to get pissed off?
It's someone who's just looking for a fight.
Someone who's just looking or spoiling for a fight, because then it's just sort of like, well, if I just make sure that there's plenty of combat, can you ease up on the aggression? Just make sure there's a steady diet of action.
Because what happens then is that one player is now hijacking the fun and is railroading the campaign in that direct. Like, you know, there have been
just for their own benefit. That's the
right.
that's what problem players do, and that's one of the most infuriating things about it is they make the whole game just about them.
Yeah,
not like the group. And it doesn't matter if it's a problem DM or a problem player. Half the time, most of the time, it's just like they're trying to hijack this group activity and make it all about them.
yeah.
And they maybe know they're doing it and don't care, or maybe they don't know they're doing it, and a talking to is what they need.
Yep. Peepat, the next comment, kick their ass in game. That's a good point. What you do is you put a dragon in polymorph form, have them just offer a slight insult, and when they spoil for a fight, have it morph into a dragon and put their claw on them, and you know, see what happens.
There are some players who respond well to in-game solutions. I usually discourage in-game solutions because they can escalate fairly quickly, and you're not really dealing with the issue there. You're just kind of like trying to find a good band-aid to put over it. But some players respond really well, and maybe he thinks, or he or she thinks that it's perfectly okay to run around acting belligerent and aggressive, and a you know, a swole NPC needs to come by and just dust them up sometime.
Yeah.
But I don't, you know, those, to me, those times are rare enough that it's always worth talking to the person first than going straight for the end game solution. This brings me to, like, I'm reading up the DMG. I've been reading the first edition DMG for this thing next weekend. It is full of so much shit advice for like,
oh, really?
There's some good parts, right? Like there's some parts where they're like sit and talk to the player, but like Gygax is in there sometimes, like, if you have a player who's doing something, whatever, feel free to take their gold and gemstones away. Just dock them levels if they you know, don't do something that they're supposed to, or they're being disruptive. It's just like, geez, like that seems
some negative reinforcement.
So there's a lot in the first edition DMG that's beautiful, amazing, still useful, and there's a lot of the first edition DMG that's like, yeah, fun times.
So Kirk King II, what was your inspiration for the silenced puppet thugs from the episode 4 of Saber Dice? Your game, obviously.
The silenced puppet thugs. I mean, my inspiration there was just sort of Invasion of the Body Snatchers, or you know, anything where someone's control of their body is taken away from them. And so and this is one of those things that in my head, it's this horrifying moment that if it was a movie, we'd have a cutscene to it. We'd have a cutscene to the Seeker, you know, forcing someone with a knife and pulling out their tongue and having to cut their own tongue out, or gouge their eyes out, or something that like prevents them from telling others what happened to them. And yeah, it doesn't. So the players have to kind of like have that slowly dawn on them as they talk to the NPCs afterwards, and like get up close, right? Like it's in the shadows, it's in the dark. We're going to assume that early on the players are going to like just kill these things because they perceive them as enemies, and it's only when one of them gets up close that you reveal, like, oh, there's a look of sheer terror on this person's face as they're fighting you. That's when that's sort of like flip the tables on the players and like, oh shit, maybe we shouldn't be killing them because they're not completely in control. And that's where they're sort of revealed that there's a puppet master somewhere that needs to be taken out, as opposed to just like, oh, we're under attack by a bunch of thugs. So that's kind of my inspiration for it. I like anything that suggests horror or body horror, or not in control of yourself, and then like making the players have to confront that is usually it leads to interesting moments, I find.
Yeah. So Trey McLemore has what are some good heuristics or go-to methods for adding flavor to monsters?
Let's see. Adding flavors to monsters. I mean, think about them in terms of what animal they best represent. That's kind of the rubric, or sort of the first thing that I think of. If they resemble an animal or a collection of animals, then like pay attention when I'm watching a nature documentary and sort of like, how does this big cat move? How does this Komodo dragon move? How does this hawk move? And then I will keep those, particularly like predator animals, right? Keep those behaviors and things in mind, so that if I'm describing a black dragon stalking the party through a swamp, then I'll recall in my mind alligators or crocodiles or something else that stalks its prey through the water and makes a surprise attack. Or if I'm thinking of something that's like a hippogriff attacking the party, then I might, or a griffin or something like that attacking the party, then I might call to mind an eagle or something like that. It folds its wings back and dives at you. That's kind of where I started, and then I add in some sort of element of the fantastical. But I also, in my games, I find I tend to use humanoid opponents the majority of the time, and I don't really use a lot of monsters in my games. The antagonists and opponents do tend to be more humanoid than monstrous.
Okay, so Pipad has a follow-up question to his, to I assume the scale of Bahamut. I was thinking more, what would the effects of it just existing around the party? Well, I mean, you could give it some, like when you're regaining hit points during like a rest, like a plus whatever, or you use one less hit die than you normally would use. So if you only want to use one, well, once a day, you don't use any. I don't know. I mean,
I can see something like that. If they're a dragon born in the party, I could see them having a bonus to their sort of racial abilities or something like that. If there are any draconic sorcerers in the party, I might consider giving them a boost to that kind of thing.
Maybe evil dragons would sense it. Good dragons also. So it might.
It could be something like that.
Yeah, it could be a beacon. So hey, you're going to be on the radar for dragons more often.
Yeah, you just add a couple of dragons to every random encounter table that the party goes through.
Yeah.
Those are the kinds of things that I can think of. I mean, you can also have it do completely weird stuff, right? Like depending on how you perceive and conceive of gods in your campaign world, it could be that just being around the cast-offs of divinity has consequences that aren't even necessarily related to what's going on. It's just a dangerous thing to have around, right?
What if the bearer of it, if any kind of magic like targets them or affects them, that you roll on the wild magic surge table?
Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
I mean, just some crazy shit happens because like part of that magic deflects off the divinity, and depending on the angle and what it was, you never know. So that's why who cares? I don't know. I mean, I'd probably do that.
Sure.
Blizzard 13. What are the ideal races to make available for a low magic campaign?
I mean, that one's kind of a tough one, because on the one hand, it's just sort of like, what races do you want to feature, and then just alter their abilities so that they're more in line. Like you might, if you feature high elves, you might take away their cantrip and instead give them a free arcana proficiency. You know what I mean? To reflect their sort of their magical whatever. Maybe not any of the races that have magic as part of their racial abilities. So that gives sort of drow, deep gnomes.
So it's only wood elves.
Wood elves are yeah, right. It could also just be just wood elves. But I think there's like certain gnomes, like the forest gnomes have magical ability. I mean, there's a lot of them that have like a cantrip or something. They have either getting rid of those or getting rid of their races. To me, a low magic setting is more like, does low magic to you mean human centric? Because for a lot of people it does, and if it does, then you probably can just say like, it's humans only, guys. I've run several campaigns where my only stipulation was like, it's humans only. I don't care what else you play. No one knows what an elf is. No one knows what a dwarf is. It's humans only. So it's really more like, what kind of setting are you looking to invoke? If you're looking to evoke that kind of like classic Conan swords and sandals sort of thing, then maybe it is just humans and the occasional like half elf or something, if that. or human adjacent uh, uh, race. But otherwise, it's just really kind of what you want to do with the low magic setting that you determine
See,
what races you have.
Yeah, I always just saw low magic as just access to magic. Like,
yeah.
So not really the races, but you know, if
mean,
the
like,
PCs are a class that can cast magic, they're the only one in that area at all.
I mean, like that's like most of The Witcher, right? Like your character, you know, your Geralt rides around a village, and it's like, there's maybe an elf here, or you're on the outskirts of a big city. There's the demi-human ghetto, but there's the number of casters that are there can all be named on one hand, and they are known entities and people. They're not just randos.
Right. All right. So let's see. So we're about 14 minutes out. So
Sure.
If y'all want to get your last questions in, we still have a couple here in the chat.
Right.
Next one here from Kirk King II. Feat question. The Polearm Master Sentinel Warcaster combo has become a popular topic online. I wonder why.
Mm-hmm.
And a player of mine wants to exploit this. Should I let them? Should let this PC with a cantrip at 10 yards? Lol.
Let them make. Are you going to let your player make a booming blade opportunity attack with reach? Is what it sounds like you're asking.
Yeah.
I mean, first off,
your bugbear with the sentinel feet. So
I mean, it's like, yeah, right. It could be a bugbear, but then they're going to be 12th level with no ability score increases.
Yeah,
at the earliest level they can do it. That's a feat heavy build for what's probably like an Eldritch Knight or maybe a Blade Singer. Maybe I'm guessing. Otherwise, how are they getting a cantrip if they're also having to take like Magic Initiate or something? Although I can see a Hexblade Warlock also using this. Some bards. I mean, like any of the Gish builds could do this, but it's still 3 feats. And even if they're a human and they took one of those at first level.
So okay, so you're at 8th level at this point. That's 4 feats, and let's just say that they're also a battle master, so they take the lunging maneuver. So that's another 5 feet. I mean, how far out can we stretch this reach? A bugbear, battle master, magic initiative,
a bugbear but then that's a little extreme. I think like more than likely what you're talking about is like a human Eldritch Knight or something like that, or a human Hexblade or something.
It's a tiefling Hexblade. He just popped
tiefling Hexblade. Okay, so it's a tiefling Hexblade. That means without any ability score increases, they're sinking 3 feats in order to do what I'm going to assume a booming blade on a reaction at with reach. And I think it's popular for a reason, but I'm also thinking like as soon as an enemy knows what he can do, it's like just attack the guy from range.
Yeah.
Don't get anywhere near him if he's whirling. And quite honestly, any smart enemy who looks at what this guy probably looks like in battle, at least with the glaive or the halberd out, and there's magic all around them, would probably be like, yeah, that guy needs to be engaged at range. Pour the archers and make him roll a bunch of dex saves to avoid lightning bolts and shit. It really is. It's kind of like what we said in our feats show. It's like, how much work are you willing to do to make sure that he doesn't curb stomp your encounters? And if the answer to that is a minimal amount of work, then you might have a problem on your hands. But if you're willing to think through your encounters, play your enemies intelligently, and occasionally throw things in there that are specifically designed to counter him, not all the time, but occasionally, then you might find that he gets a big kick out of being the swirling, pole-armed, booming bladed, flame blade, whatever, some of the time, and that other times it's a liability, and that it doesn't come up as often as maybe you're worried about.
Yeah, totally. I love it. So Trey McLemore, having looked at the Numenera book, you could alter a cipher system focus and turn it into a 5e feat. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, I can see that. Sure. There's certainly some foci that are low key enough to be feats, and you should let them inspire you, right? Like, especially if you're going for like a weird Gonzo style game where you want a random player to otherwise be able to turn themselves into living metal, but you don't want them to have to multi-class. You don't want them to have to be a spellcaster. You just want them to have that power. Then you could certainly use feats for something like that and take inspiration from Numenera.
Yeah. I mean, it's just like you did in Out of the Abyss with turning Audie's character into a vampire. Just make them invest a few feats if they want to do this instead.
Yeah.
So they're a fighter that can also wreath themselves in flame, you know?
Sure. Yeah. That's the other thing is like if the Numenera focus is too fantastic or too magical and you're worried about it, then break it up into 2 separate feats and make it a 1-2 sort of like, in order to get the second one, you have to have this first one sort of thing.
Yeah. So Austin F., what general interpretation of time travel do you feel is easiest to work into your games, as in effects, potential paradoxes, or just direct limits? Well, not to sound too Doctor Who, but it's best, you know, wibbly wobbly.
Yeah, my preferred method is that every jump in time by the players represents a fraying of the central timeline that they're on, but creates an alternate reality, so that paradoxes are less of a problem, but they might find themselves in a situation where they've jumped too much and the fray has gone crazy and now there's 64 versions of themselves.
Well, I mean, unless they're directly interacting with their own actions and you know, alterations, keep it pretty loose. I mean, you know, it's all academic for me. I've never played a game where I've tried to work in time travel. It's always been a dream.
But I've seen different time travel be like it's one way. You go one way and then that's it. And then it's more used as like a plot device. I'm thinking of the time travel people in somewhere south of the Sea of Fallen Stars and Forgotten Realms that create golems that they send the golem back through time. And then they're like with instructions to wait at this specific spot so that when they cast the spell to send them back in time and then they walk 5 feet over to the specific spot, the golem is there, but it's traveled 500, 1,000, 10,000 years and then reports back what it observed to these wizards. And they're basically just historians that are collecting magic that way. I always kind of thought it'd be interesting to do that with like an immortal type player character. I was actually going to offer it to Audie as the only way she could time travel back in time to do something that she'd just have to wait 10,000 years to get back to her present time.
Jeez.
We never got that far though. I think not worrying about it too much or letting it be really messy and weird until you start noticing paradoxes that you can then throw back at the players. And it could be that you have a bunch of inevitables or time elementals or some shit coming after them because they hop around too much. I would play it messy just to enjoy the messiness of it and then hit them with a paradox after they're a little too cavalier. So yeah.
So next question is, we only got like 7 minutes left here. Pat has, at what point does a party interfere with the big bad evil guy's plans enough that they take personal interest in the party? Ooh, yeah. When do you draw the eye of the big guy?
It depends how proactive the big guy is. If the big guy's a spellcaster casting a bunch of divinations, maybe before the party's really ready for it. I would say that you do it once the players have disrupted enough of their operations that that there's no way that the big bad can just sort of write it off as a nuisance. So I'm gonna sort of delve into, I consider like the first season of Daredevil, if you've seen it, right? Daredevil's out there beating up the low-level thugs. He's going to fisticuffs with drug dealers and people that are human traffickers and gun runners and things like that until he eventually starts getting the attentions of like the lieutenants. That's like the 3rd or 4th episode, right? But even then, they've just got the attention of the lieutenants, not the big boss. It isn't until they start taking out Daredevil starts taking out whole sections of crime families. And it's just like, yeah, there used to be people that ran drugs through Hell's Kitchen here, but those people have been removed by this one guy. And that's when the big guy comes in. So you might look at it, your own plots, and see like, is this a lieutenant level threat? And if so, you know, if they can clean it up, that's great. But if the lieutenant gets taken out, then certainly the big boss is going to intervene personally if they're not already aware of what's going on.
Yep, because that's once he busts up the Russians taxi business, that's when
That's it. Yeah, right.
he had to step in because he's like, well, shit, the guys right below me
Yeah.
are now scared, so I guess I got to be take over their business and
Yeah.
hey, do something like that, set them against one another.
Uh-huh.
So Daniel Thompson, how would you handle a party that has access to a lot of flying? Have a lot of flying enemies that
Have a
are
lot
a
of
lot
flying enemies.
faster.
Yeah, have a lot of flying enemies. You know, lots of flying is to me a hallmark of mid to high level Dungeons and Dragons.
Yeah,
It always has been for me. It's whether it was the party on the backs of Pegasi and Griffins and shit, or a flying carpet, or everybody just having some way to casting fly on themselves. Like flight has always been it's a benchmark for a D&D party. Can we summon elementals? Can we fly ourselves somewhere? With a lot of flying, throw flying enemies at them. Throw a couple of big bruisey type dragons or big flyers that can engage the party in melee with a cloud of archers or long range casters on smaller mounts that can stay at least 120 feet away, if not their max range of whatever it is that they're doing. So like a lot of cantrips and shit are 60 feet or 120 feet, but there's nothing stopping you from giving spell sniper to your enemy casters, and having them park themselves 600 feet away from the party, particularly if they're warlocks and you're flying on a mount or some shit, where it's like, yeah, I took a repelling blast as well, and this guy is going to fly 600 feet away, hit you with an Eldritch Blast and knock you back 5 feet. I hope you prepared Featherfall.
Yeah.
That's one way to do it. And at the same time, they're having to deal with, like, say, a big ass dragon that's just making passes at them. Either just like waiting for their breath weapon and only going in when their breath weapon's charged, or like staying in one round, doing a couple of claw tail or whatever, and then leaving the next round and trying to draw some of the party away from their group. Do that a couple of times where they're just casually flying around somewhere, and they might start keeping to the ground, if only for cover, and to not have to worry about like falling and shit like that.
Yeah, it's like that episode of Last Airbender where the Fire Nation is searching for them, and they try to fly this way and that, and they end up walking in the caves.
Yes.
So, yeah. Which you got to learn them, and as we all should know by now, when a dragon makes a pass at you, you better not reject it, because things aren't going to be good after that. Won't be good anyway, but lesser of two evils. So Blizzard's thing, does a Beholder's anti-magic ray, eye-ray, affect magic items? Yeah, yes.
I think it depends. There's a different interpretation of it. My honest answer, Blizzard 13, would be to search Jeremy Crawford's Twitter for every instance of anti-magic. He answers questions about these all the time. He's very specific. And I'm trying to sort of channel that right now. If the effect of the magic item that it generates is a spell-like effect, then that's an absolute yes. But the rules on it are very fuzzy now, and I think a lot of people, myself included, sort of use older interpretations of anti-magic when like really reading, like it's been forever since I've read what anti-magic does. I just assume it works like it always has, which is just like all magic is shut down. But then there's questions of like, is a dragon's breath magical? Is a dragon's flight magical? Are monk abilities are they shut down in an anti-magic ray? The answer to all of those things is no. You can use all of those things in an anti-magic ray. I would start with the assumption that if it's a spell or a spell-like effect, it's definitely shut down, and then from there start looking and seeing like, yeah, a +1 sword is probably still a +1 sword. But yeah, I don't know. I've come from a school where it's just like, it's anti-magic. Like you bring a skeleton animated by Animate Dead in there, that skeleton's going to fall apart. But the answer in 5th edition is that skeleton's just fine, as sort of the rules as written. I would just say reread the anti-magic. It could be, and don't take it too. Don't try to interpret it too much. Take the wording of the spell literally, and don't make any assumptions about it. Because one of the things that I've learned, like reading through the Sage Advice and Crawford's tweets and everything, is a lot of the times people are asking him questions. They're adding in assumptions to the rules that don't exist because they're looking for a desired outcome. And he's just kind of like, well, does the spell say that? Does the ability say that? And if the answer is no, then the player, whoever, is reading into it. So that's kind of a sloppy, messy answer, Blizzard 13. But yeah, let's see.
Well, I think that's going to be about it there.
Cool.
It's here about 5 o'clock.
Yeah, so we really, I know we really appreciate you guys. This is kind of a last minute one. We are doing next weekend. We're doing a live reading. We will get the exact time for that for all the Patreon supporters, but it's probably going to be after 1 p.m. Central at some point. And then just because I have a thing to do that morning, I'd like to get it done before the evening. I'll do a live reading myself. I don't know how elaborate it'll be. My goal of it is to be like a masterpiece theater with a smoking jacket and a thing. I don't know if we're going to have that kind of setup. And then we'll undoubtedly do just a hangout for everybody at that point. I'm seeing Kurt King II. Do you role play hunting, foraging, etc.? Oh, I think we forgot this one. Asking if you're in a tree stand. That's good. I tell you what, I've had some wonderful D&D moments while I was out hunting as well. It made stalking through the woods at night very real. So I would say this. I role play it out if the person who's actually having to do it is interested in doing it. And if not, then we bring it down to a simple roll. If the person who's interested in doing it is interested, then I will draw upon what personal knowledge I have to make it an interesting encounter. So yeah, that's cool. That's sort of my blanket answer. Anyway, we're wrapping up. We're done.
Yeah, I think we're done. So we love you. We'll see y'all next weekend for Jim's dramatic reading. And as we always say, may the dice ever roll in your favor.
Thanks, guys.